Hi, I'm Jodie, a relationship and sex therapist based in Southern California, and today we are going to be continuing our Love Island reaction series with episodes 6 and 7. We kind of kick off episode 6 with my favorite guy in the house, Sean, Officer Sexy, just left. And if you remember my other video, I thought was one of the most emotionally mature guys in the house. Of course, whenever those ones leave, I'm not surprised. However, I'm always really sad because they're the ones that probably have the best chance at a real lasting relationship. So Sean just left. They're showing everybody's reactions, which to be honest, wasn't much. Kind of had something going on with Kenzie. If you remember from the last episode, the new guy chose Kenzie, which is why Kenzie wouldn't have been able to choose Sean. It never actually said whether Kenzie would have chosen Sean. However, she was kind of saying that Sean was her number one in other episodes, so I wouldn't have been surprised if she did choose him. But to be honest, there's been some kind of questionable things about Kenzie in the past, like when she was kind of acting a little, like bullyish, too cool girl, like when, with the whole thing with Zach happened. Of course, I've talked about this before as a defense mechanism, fully understand it, but not a good look. And here, she really wasn't acting that sad.
I know I am choosing. I can't really stop. I'm like, ah.
In other seasons, people would be distraught when people that they had a connection with would leave. And, maybe it was only a week, but Sean was one of the OG guys. I usually have a little bit more of a bond. I felt like some of the other guys had a harder time with Sean leaving than Kenzie, who's been making out with him and he's been making her breakfast and they've been building a connection. So I thought that was really strange. But to be honest, I think that Kenzie just kind of has I don't want to say love eyes because I don't really think it's love. I think it's just attraction and just kind of like this steaminess with Corbin, because it starts to show their conversations. They've had a little bit of serious conversations, but a lot of their conversations feel very superficial. They're just talking about sex and oh my God, you're so hot. I want to make out with you. And I'm like, yes, but this is reminding me a little bit more of too hot to handle, of let's try to build something deeper. The other couples aren't really doing that as much. Yeah, of course everybody's hot, they're trying to build a real connection, and there's something that feels just very superficial about their relationship that I'm just not really a fan of and don't see it really going anywhere. Casey wasn't intimidated by Anaya's independence. They showed them being in a conversation. I think that's always a green flag. I think because a lot of men historically have been socialized to be the man of the house and the breadwinner and all these things, that sometimes when they come across a woman who has done more things, achieved more, traveled more, makes more money, whatever it is, there can be a lot of insecurities that get triggered for them. And then they kind of sabotage things, or they say, oh, I'm not attracted to that. Even though, that should be something we all are really valuing in a relationship. Not that it needs to be there, but just hiding hey, this is a person that has a life together, and what does that bring into a relationship? So that was a major green flag for KC when Anaya was sharing those things, and actually was encouraging, being positive towards KC about him or going into those things, because it was something he wanted to do, but he shared that he was just afraid and hasn't really left his bubble because of it. Kenzie and Corbin were kind of having a lot of sexual talk, which I wasn't really a fan of. I am getting a little worried about Bea and Gabrielle. I'm not surprised though. There's always been a little bit of a weird feeling with them. Gabrielle, I don't know how serious he is, to be honest. He kind of gives off fuckboy energy a little bit, so I don't really know how serious he is about finding a relationship. There's just something that feels kind of inauthentic about him. And then Bea, she's openly shared that, she has some walls up and things. So for her being vulnerable, even though she's really making it obvious that she really likes Gabrielle, there was just some things they started to kind of feel a little bit off in this episode. And I'm kind of excited to kind of talk about that a little bit more. I think some things progressed in the other episode that we'll kind of get into shortly. This was the first outfit that I loved on Ariana. I loved this little slumber party outfit that she had. It was beautiful. So we had the challenge to just kind of give away. It was like a slumber party kind of thing. So, they're all in lingerie, pajamas kind of thing, and they're on this huge bed, and then they have to make make out with each other, and the girls have to be blindfolded and find who their partner is, etc. That one was really interesting because these challenges, they are kind of like a test also of your relationship. It's a place that you can kind of take off your relationship hat and have fun. However, it is really interesting to see how people move in these challenges in respect to their current relationship. Are we having a little bit of too much fun? How do you have fun but still remain respectful of your partner? Are insecurities coming up? All these kind of things. You definitely got to see this on which girls, how they were kind of operating in here, because the guys really couldn't do anything. They were handcuffed to the bed. So they're not the ones moving. They're just watching everything happen, right? So of course they have to see their girl making out with other guys, and what's that like for them? Anaya was really the only one it felt like, that was doing the least, meaning like being the most respectful. Everybody else went in with the makeouts and they had paint so they could tell who's making out with who or whatever. But Anaya really was like, I don't even need to make out with you. I just need to touch you to feel if you're my guy or not. And only then went to make out when she actually found Casey. And I think there was something very mature and respectful about that. And a lot of the other girls did not do that. Of course, nothing wrong with having some fun. You know, I'm sure the guys would have done the same. These are just little things that you kind of bookmark and you kind of see how this maybe affects the trajectory of their relationship. But I thought that was a green flag for Anaya for me. Of course, you know, they snuck in some bombshells. The two bombshell girls, Jen and Sol, actually participated in the activity in the challenge, whereas the male, Caleb, came in like later afterwards and got introduced once everybody was kind of already settled in. And of course, the girls were like, who's this red paint? And they're like, bombshells. Red-handed. So pretty cute with that. So then we kind of end there. A lot of getting to see like a lot of cute conversations before the challenge, really getting to see them going deeper into their relationship, which most of them did kind of beside Kenzie and Corbin. I think everybody else got a lot of cutesy moments and things like that where they did not as much. And then you have the challenge. And then now episode 7, we start to see kind of the fallout of a lot of these things. So of course, the challenges always bring up the insecurities, right? New bombshells always bring up the insecurities. What happens when we add a little bit of stress? And if you know me, then one of my biggest things is you don't know what your relationship's capable until you add a little bit of stress. That is always when you're going to see all the things come out that are really what you want to know about your relationship, right? How are you supposed to really know if your relationship is viable if you don't know what diffs look like when you've gotten into a fight, or, you know, work stress hits, or any of these other things? You need to know what stress looks like and how you both manage stress, because that's gonna be what tanks your relationship. So challenges, new bombshells, all introduce stress. So we move into episode 7. Mainly it's the fallout of episode 6 and the challenge, right? So we had Melanie, who got like overly excited. This has not been, or I guess this has been a trend now, where there's been these interactions with Melanie that she seems overly confused about.
She was like, why'd she react like why'd she react like
To the boy?
Yeah,
because I'm fucking
that's what I said. That's what I said.
I'm not here to diagnose anybody, but I'm gonna be honest, whenever I see it's either, you know, maybe a trauma response or just maybe ways that she's kind of learned to move in the world based on like her life experiences and maybe protectors. But whenever I see somebody that's kind of having like pretty consistent interactions with people where she seems confused or her intention and the impact are not the same, I'm always gonna get a little bit of a spidey sense for some maybe neurodivergence. And again, I'm not here to diagnose anybody, but that is something I'm definitely noticing with Melanie specifically. There are a lot of interactions in which like she either responds in the moment, doesn't realize like how that's coming off to people, or like there's another interaction where Bea was like, hey, can you sit back so the other girls can see the guy? Like a lot of like not really being mindful or not having, and again, that doesn't even mean that's a choice, but maybe that lack of awareness, or maybe her tone or how she says things. And, you know, like we talked about before, like it's almost like a rejection sensitivity thing of like as soon as she was kind of called out. That's pretty typical for a lot of people. But again, on top of some of these other things, there's sometimes a spidey sense that I get of like, what's going on there? So Melanie was kind of like overly excited for this new guy, and kind of like at one point was like going back and forth between Sincere and Corbin. And Sincere's like, really? You're just making out back and forth. Whereas Melanie was like, I literally could not tell which one was which.
These two kisses are good. So I'm like, which one is the best?
Whereas a lot of the other people were like, what? We could tell? What do you mean? How could you not tell? They're totally different. Either she's full of it, and just playing around and not able to like just own that she was kind of playing around and having a good time and maybe cross the line, versus like maybe she really did not know, and like that just being a different experience than everybody else had. That kind of was causing a crack this episode. Casey kind of made a bad joke when he said he was like really excited.
He joked around way too much. That shit just wasn't funny. That shit wasn't funny.
Just tell him.
I'm dead pissed off. Like I don't play like that. I never have joked around or did no fucking shit like that to
That's
him.
valid. That's absolutely
That's not
valid.
funny to me.
Anaya, a little bit of the insecurity was coming out, especially when she's like, yo, I just, you know, was like not even making out with these guys, and then this new girl comes in and you're like, even if it's a joke, like going, hell yeah, I'm excited kind of thing. I don't remember exactly what he said, but I get that's gonna bring up some insecurity. I think Casey handled it overall pretty well. Sometimes when people explain a little bit too much, they kind of dig themselves into a hole. He did say something else that then made her feel insecure. You know, you're gonna see these kind of things happen tonight, but it is good information on how people handle these kind of situations, right? Trinity's maturity to be friends with new girls, that was really nice. She was offering to like show show them around.
It can be very intimidating coming into a villa that's already established with couples, friendships already. So I want them to be as comfortable as possible.
Green flag, whereas some of the other girls were like, I think it was Bea or no, I don't feel like it was Bea, it was somebody else. But they were like, oh, they were making out like while it was right there.
Are you fucking dead ass? Wait, that's so fucking annoying.
Kata was actually acting insecure, being like, I was right there and they're like making out with them. And I'm like, girl, this is the challenge. And again, this is what the show is telling them to do. What are you expecting those bombshells to do? Say no? They know the show they're coming on. They don't have any loyalties to you at this time. Like, that's how the challenge works. We were not in a challenge and they just came up and started making out with your guy. Okay, yeah, maybe a little bit level of disrespect. This is sadly something that men do it too, but a lot of the time see it with women where they'll quickly turn on another woman rather than actually keeping like the blame where it belongs, whether it be the guy or, you know, the person that was in the relationship or the situation. They kind of, you know, puff up the chest. And again, this is that kind of lack of resources, like kind of fight or flight, you know, response. That was kind of more of a red flag kind of behavior from Kata. But Trinity's over here like, welcome in, girls. How you doing? I'll show you. You know, even though people were making out with her man too, that she's really connected with. These are some things, I'm putting them in categories, right? Red flag, green flag, just things to look out for that are positive things about people in relationships and things that are more likely to lead to a positive relationship.
It's one rule for them, one rule for us, the way they react to shit. But she's on her back, getting her fucking wrapping her legs around him and shit.
Zach was upset with Kata because of how she was kind of leaning in and acting while making out with Caleb, the new guy, during the challenge. I think I get where he's coming from. At the same time, I'm like, bro, every time, you know, when the bombshells walked in, you were playing the part to the, like, oh my God, like, come on, it's part of the thing. I get it. And like, you all looked pretty excited when the bombshells came in. If she was watching that back too, I could see how she could feel the same on how you were responding to the bombshells. I'm sure when you were making out with them, you were like giving it your all as well and excited about it. But just because you're watching it, like, it did feel a little gaslighty. However, I understand because he's been pretty committed to her. Are we both exploring? Which they kind of then started saying that they are. And this is where we start to see the first big crack in Zach Kata. Now, what do we do now that we're feeling insecure with each other? What did they do? They actually started to kind of talk to other people, pull other people for the chats, especially like Zach started initiating that. And of course, as you can imagine, we're going to start to spiral from here with Kata. Caleb had a chat with Bea, which I thought she was really respectful during that chat. Gabrielle had a chat with Sol. Again, this is where I'm pulling it out, that Gabrielle's kind of giving fuckboy energy. He initiated and made out with Sol. It was kind of funny to then hear Sol, like in her private interview, say actually it was kind of a turnoff. There's something about him that like turned her off.
Gabe, he's obviously handsome, but I can like taste people's pheromones when I'm like kissing them. So it's like sometimes it kind of just like turns me off if like my body's just like, that was not it, girl.
Good for you, girl. If you're to explore, there's a way to move and do it. He's giving player vibes. Not a super fan of him. Don't really think he's here for the right reasons. We're here to have fun, but also to make actual genuine connections. Gabrielle also had a chat with Jen, also kissed Jen, and Bea, as expected, knowing that, you know, she's a girl that very openly talked about kind of a wall that she builds, is basically like, nope, I ain't gonna worry about it. If that's how he wants to do, then he's just not the guy for me. And I was like, good for you, girl. I'm hoping she's also processing her feelings because we can't just lock it all in. But if that's really authentic and, you know, sometimes you gotta fake it to make it, good for her and not letting that make her into a worse version of herself where she's feeling insecure, acting out, being angry, yelling at him, or continuing to make excuses for his behavior. I do kind of see this one really not working out. I think we're kind of seeing the end of Bea Gabrielle. Yeah, I'm not really caring for how he's moving right now. So we can go back to the Sincere Melanie thing. Sincere, of course, is hurt. Sincere is, you know, of course, remember way before he pulled a girl for a chat before and kind of didn't give Melanie a heads up, which was a little sus. So he's not an innocent victim here. But he, you know, he did kind of bring in like this consistency of Melanie kind of crossing lines, feeling like she's not respecting him as a partner, some of these things, and just kind of feeling hurt by a lot of things that she does, which sure, there's some validity there. He kind of decides, hey, I'm gonna kind of explore, and I don't, you know, that's why I get nervous about locking down too soon, because I feel like I'm not being really fully respected. And so he has, during episode 2, chats with Soul, which he seems like he's really feeling her a lot. And they did kiss, and he did say that he was open as well, which I think he was honest with Melanie about that as well. What does open even mean in the Love Island house? That's always a thing they have to clarify. Okay, so he made out with her, I think, both times. Again, I think this might be a big enough crack for Melanie and Sincere that they're not gonna probably make it. I don't think they're gonna make it. It sounds like they're trying to still kind of do something. To be honest, I think it's getting too big. I think Sincere is like, okay, I'm gonna move on, and I think he's creating a relationship with Soul right now that he's probably gonna pick in a recoupling, to be honest. They do seem like they have a good connection. Soul definitely so far seems a little bit more emotionally mature than Melanie, to be honest. Just to prove my point right now, Melanie eventually, like, she was pouting at the table and having a hard time, and then eventually went out and looked for them when they were on a chat. Not a good look, girl. Not a good look. I get it. Been there. Like, when you're feeling hurt, you just want to kind of, there's that want to yell at him, be like, excuse me, oh, what's going on in here? It's not a good look, though. It's not the mature response. I get it, but I think all it's going to do is look bad on Melanie when she's doing that. But it did feel like Sincere was not sincere or honest with Melanie when she asked about what happened, and he's like, oh, she initiated the kid. I'm like, stop acting like you're a passenger in this connection, because you're not. This is where, like, these kind of mixed signals and, like, kind of lying starts to happen a little bit. That's just gonna fan the flames of insecurity, and shit's gonna blow up, and there's gonna be hurt feelings all over the place. You know, they're not having honest conversations. He's like, oh, I just made out with this girl, you know, twice. I allowed it, pulled her for a chat. I'm really connecting. You know what? But I really still want to see where this goes, and I'm really still connected to you the most. And what? I don't know how I feel about that. So yeah, so there's a lot of fallout from episode 6. Definitely the drama in episode 7. A lot more relationships are kind of on the rocks, which I'm only guessing because I kind of saw the title of the next episode I'm about to watch. That, yeah, it definitely seems like that's going to continue. And also at the end, the show is telling us, you know, as an audience, to vote for who the bombshells should match with. I feel like they've done that before where they have the audience actually choose. And I think they did that last season with, like, Puda. And I was like, thank God, get them apart from each other. Please, we need divine audience intervention here. So I'm excited to see what happens in episode 8. But again, the drama is starting as we expect from Love Island, and I will see you in the next episode.